In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm financial advisor and host Rick Everett, and today we're discussing the benefits of being proactive in getting all of your retirement plans in place. And that's exactly why we've gathered a team of professionals for this episode. Today our panel includes Jonathon McCoy, financial advisor and partner of Market Advisory Group, CPA Joshua Cicora from Market Tax Services, estate planning attorney and founder of Eidelman Law Firm, Gerald Eidelman, and health insurance advisor Trey Bassa with Market Medicare Advisors. Welcome in, everyone. Jonathon, you've got an interesting retirement story for us today that I'm looking very forward to diving into with you.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've all been talking a little bit about Marty's situation before the show, and we've been working with Marty now for 5 to 6 years, and we met with him a couple of years after he retired. So his retirement was sort of prompted by the loss of his spouse. His wife had passed away, and he ultimately decided, now was the time to shift his life from work to family. 4 kids, multiple brothers and sisters, a father who was aging at the time, and grandkids coming into the picture, and that was really what he wanted to be spending his time on. So when Marty retired, his neighbor across the street was a financial advisor, so sort of by the de facto relationship there, Marty ended up working with his neighbor for a couple of years and had done a reasonably good job in terms of managing the investment piece. But Marty had come to one of our in-person educational workshops specifically to address the process of filing for Social Security, and that was really his initial concern. Was he's coming of that age, he retired a little bit earlier than a lot of folks that we talked to, but now was the time to decide, should I file for Social Security? He had a part-time job going on. And that's really what started the relationship. And really, the end of the story is now we're working with a couple of Marty's brothers, and his children have come in for some estate planning services and things. But for Marty's circumstance in particular, what we've expounded our advice and services into, it includes the transition in healthcare from employer-provided health insurance to Medicare, for example, which is where Trey steps in. And a lot of what we'll talk about today is the estate planning process, as Marty and his siblings went through the process of, dividing and distributing the estate of their father who passed about a year ago. That was, as it is for most people, it was a bit of an eye-opening experience for what experience do we want our loved ones, family members, and children especially to have if something happens to us, especially if something happens, unfortunately, early in our lifetime, in our retirement. And that's where Gerald with the estate planning team stepped in to help make sure that that gap was filled.
Gerald Eidelman with Eidelman Law Firm. What did you find was going well and perhaps lacking with Marty's estate plan?
Well, actually, Marty didn't have much of a estate plan in place. It's amazing how many people don't, even in their 70s and after retirement. And so we had to look at his circumstances and start from ground zero, but we had to deal also with the prior experience he had dealing with his father's estate. And that had a significant impact on what he wanted to plan for the future and how his children would deal with it. I mean, his dad had left a will, and the will always needs to be probated. I mean, it needs to go through court. It needs to be approved by the court. And the court sets up the times at which certain assets can be transferred. Now, at the time that this was going on, there was volatility in the market, and there was some investments of Marty's father that were swinging back and forth. And because of the situation because it was in probate, they couldn't quite have enough control to cash that out or invest it in a different way. And they found themselves very frustrated because they would see the portfolio going down and they had no control over it. So Marty wanted to make sure that for him, or for his children and his heirs, that would not be the case. And so one of the best ways to avoid this delay of probate, I mean, probate always takes between 6 months to a year to progress. Others can take a much longer. We'll hear a story later about a person took 6 years to go through probate. It happens. It's expensive. If anybody disagrees, if there's any dispute, it can go on and on. I have a case right now that I'm involved in. They're not my fees, but a lawyer that was working for this two people charged them $43,000 in legal fees over a period of less than a year. So you have to be aware of all those things. So what we did for Marty was the best way to avoid probate, and that is a trust. We set up a trust so that he wanted to benefit, obviously, his children, but he was also concerned about setting up something up for his grandchildren. And that's something that you can do uniquely in a trust that you cannot do through a will. He set up a portion of his estate to go into trust for the grandchildren so they could be receiving money for education, maintenance, support, anything that they needed. And then as they reach a certain age, they could take all the money out and make decisions for themselves. And that was very important for Marty. A bigger problem Marty had, since he was single, he didn't have powers of attorney. He didn't have a power of attorney for finances. He didn't have a power of attorney for health. If something happened to Marty and became incapacitated, who was going to speak for him and make decisions for him? The only way to do that, if there's no powers of attorney, is to go to court and get a guardianship, conservatorship, and then you can take care of him. But, a lot of things can happen between the time you actually apply for a conservatorship and guardianship until it's done. You can get an emergency one, but you're still dealing with a time period in which you can't act. So having powers of attorney in place, having designated whichever children he thought were best for the job, who were closest to him, that would prevent any potential downside if something happened. If he got in an accident, he became unconscious, he was protected. And that is extremely important, part of what we do when we do estate plan. We don't want to just simply be concerned about, okay, what happens to your assets after you die, but we're concerned with what happens to you while you're alive. And that's part of what we all do at the same time. I mean, we provide Medicare help, we help people find health insurance, we provide financial advice, we provide tax advice. All of these things work together for you right now, but we also plan for you future and what happens to your progeny or heirs. And we want to make sure that you're covered, and we cover every basis that we can before we let them go.
And I think Rick used the right word at the beginning of the segment, proactive.
That's right.
Indeed, and these are just a few of the reasons that you need to ask yourself, am I getting everything I need from my financial advisor? Most financial firms don't have tax, healthcare, and estate planning advisors in-house. At Market Advisory Group, a complete and holistic approach to retirement planning is exactly what we do. And if you'd like to find out if we're the right team for you, it only takes a brief 15-minute call. To set up that introductory phone call, just reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can also view past episodes or submit a question for us to possibly use and answer in a future episode. When we come back, we'll be continuing Marty's story with his healthcare situation, and we'll do that right after this. Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement. In this episode, we're discussing a client by the name of Marty that came to Jonathan and came in one case looking for answers to possible Social Security questions.
Yeah, we forget that's where we started this whole story, right?
And unearthed a very legitimate need for estate planning services. So moving the clock forward, what was going on with Marty's healthcare situation?
So Marty decided after he retired to take a part-time job, and fortunately the hardware store he was working at offered health insurance to their part-time employees. And Marty was a generally healthy person, did not need or use a whole lot of access to the healthcare system. So it was a somewhat modest health insurance program that he had for the couple of years before turning age 65. But very early on in the process, we're asking him the question of, what is your plan to transition from Medicare? Do you have, a Medicare professional in your life that can help you manage that? And if not, what are the things that you've been thinking about for transitioning off of that employer-provided health insurance onto Medicare eventually? And his answer was basically, I have no idea. Hadn't even thought about it. So, as we're able to walk through this process with folks, it's most of the time it's us prompting these questions, and sometimes folks will come in because they've got direct questions on Social Security, direct questions on Medicare, direct questions on estate planning. But by exploring their situation a little wider, from a wider perspective, we can start to see that, not only is your healthcare impacted by your cost of your healthcare can be impacted by your income, which can impact your tax cost. All of these things become very closely tied together. And when it came time for Marty within that 3 to 4 month window before turning 65, we had a pretty rock solid idea of what his health insurance transition to Medicare was going to look like due to the assistance of Trey Bassa and the Market Medicare Advisory team. And they're able to step in, in a way that provides continuity for our clients. Mm-hmm. They're not having to respond to the phone calls, the postcards, the TV advertisements that we see, because most of these things that we see around our health insurance system in our country do not very well apply to very specific household situations. That's why being able to expand this consultation process one-on-one allows us to dive in and identify the specific benefits that are going to help folks like Marty out, without having to, send them across town to talk to somebody who they've never met before.
Trey Bassa with Market Medicare Advisors. What were you able to assist Marty with?
Like Jonathan was saying, a lot of times these kinds of meetings, especially with Marty, starts off with a conversation about transitioning from workplace insurance to Medicare. And when we sit down and we talk about this transition, we're talking about a lot that's going on in their current life. Work, intentions for Social Security, and I'm going to tie in Joshua here, their tax returns from 2 years ago. This transition is going to be a big change. They're going from one healthcare system, one sort of insurance provider, to the Medicare system. And when they make that transition, it's a big leap for them. So when we sat down and talked with Marty about this, I had to sit down and ask him, what did your taxes look like 2 years ago? When I asked him that, it becomes a question of, why are you, the Medicare guy, why are you digging into my taxes? Here's why. The income-related monthly adjustment amount is based off of your taxes 2 years ago. That is going to affect your Medicare Part B and D premiums today. So luckily, I have in-house tax professionals to rely on and talk about these things and help prepare our clients a little bit better, not just today, not just for that transition, but for years to come.
Well, and stepping in there between Joshua and Trey, a lot of this transition to the Medicare system and the financial plan around that, it started 2 to 3 years prior because of some of these rules that a lot of folks might be missing. When we talk about transitioning pre-tax retirement accounts to tax-free retirement accounts, what is the tax management and some of the strategies that we execute with the help of our tax team, these are things that if your tax advisor aren't talking to your health insurance professional and aren't discussing these things with the financial advisor, it's possible for the financial advisor to do something on your investments that might affect 2 years down the road your health insurance premiums. And we ask the question a lot, whose job is it to bring this to your attention? And ultimately, it's not just Trey's, it's not just mine, it's not just Joshua or your CPAs. It's really an entire team of people that have to be communicating so that all of those horses are pulling in the same direction, as I like to say.
Now let's look at this from another angle. Marty was fortunate in the fact that his part-time job was going to provide him with some kind of a health insurance benefit, leading him into age 65 at Medicare. But at Market Medicare Advisors, you're also able to help people bridge that gap between, say, 63 and 65 if they don't have health insurance, correct?
Yeah, we've been dabbling with the Affordable Care Act because there are some instances where people need that stopgap measure. For one reason or another, perhaps they need to push the retirement button on their career at 62 or 63. They aren't eligible for Medicare until 65. That is a hard fact. But we do have options to give them that stopgap measure just to bridge that timeline.
What kind of advice are you getting? Is it splintered or hyper-focused? Or are your retirement advisors working together so that nothing gets overlooked? Comprehensive, holistic retirement planning is what we do at Market Advisory Group. We bring the whole team together for you. To set up a 15-minute phone call, just dial 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at ionretirement.com. You can set up the call there or see past episodes where we highlight stories like Marty's, where retirement didn't quite go as planned. In the next segment of Ion Retirement, we take a look at Marty's concerns as they pertained to taxes in retirement. And we'll do that right after this. Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement. Let's turn to Marty's taxes at this point in time. Joshua Cicora from Market Tax Services. What was going on in Marty's tax world?
Yeah, there are a variety of things happening. So he's transitioning out of employment, right? And so that was relieving us from one set of burdens, namely worrying about him taking Social Security and then the forfeiture rule while he was working. So that was going away. But we were bringing in a new set of rules we needed to worry about. Like Trey kind of talked about earlier, we were going to have to start worrying about his Medicare premiums and how his income was going to impact the cost of his health insurance going forward. Now, luckily, because he had been working those part-time jobs and he had been concerned about the Social Security forfeiture stuff, his income wasn't in a place that it was causing those difficulties now. However, as Jonathan's looped me in with Marty and we started going through his nest egg, we saw that he had a sizable nest egg, and a lot of that was in pre-tax accounts. So the taxes had never been addressed on them, and there was going to come a time in the future when he turned 73, 75, that he was going to be forced to start drawing money out of those accounts. And because of who Marty is, he wasn't really needing those dollars to make his cash flow work. So we needed to start talking today about what to do now to prevent that from being a problem in the future. Now, we were being mindful of those Medicare limits and making sure that whatever we were going to do wasn't going to throw us needlessly into that cost if he didn't want. That's one of the important things we look at as we put these tax plans together, is to see, okay, here's these plans we want to put in place. Not only what is the tax cost of that plan, but what other unintended consequences might we trip into if we do follow this course of action. And then as we go and we outline those, such as the Medicare cost in the situation, then we can tell Marty, hey, if we do this, this is going to happen, being the tax cost. But also, that thing over there, the Medicare piece, will change also. Here's how much it's going to change. And then that enables Marty not only to decide, okay, I want to follow this tax course of action because I want to get those benefits, but I can make that decision in context with this other consequence that's going to happen. And everybody decides this differently. This consequence is worth this benefit, or it's not. But people can't make that decision unless we give them all the facts all at one time. Whereas if I tell someone, okay, well, this is what your options are, then they have to take it back to Jonathan and say, okay, well, my tax guy said this, and I think he said that, and he said this thing. And then Jonathan's got to kind of parse that all back together and try to understand what I'm recommending. It just flows so much better when we're all working together for somebody versus Marty retiring and then getting another part-time job of making his retirement work for him.
I'm hearing a recurring theme, Jonathan, of proactive.
Yeah, and communication between the departments is crucial. I find myself and ourselves as financial advisors in the position of taking guidance and direction from folks like Gerald, Trey, and Joshua so that we don't inadvertently throw the future retirement plan and finances off track. And as Joshua was walking through the potential Medicare costs and the The earnings test with Social Security was something we dealt with for 2 years. We didn't really have time to discuss that today. And not only that, but just the tax cost on those retirement accounts. In a way, it's sort of, we're looking to unveil the minefield of unexpected expenses that most people trip into in retirement, especially the fact that we're dealing with the primarily baby boomer generation that's beginning to retire these days. It's the first generation, and you folks listening out here and watching today, you're the first generation in the baby boomer generation that had access to these tax-deferred retirement accounts for the majority of your career. So our country has never seen something like this transition of having shifted all of that taxable income to your retirement years, and people are having to deal with the challenging landscape.
And it is so much of a minefield. I tell people all the time that these consequences can hurt, but they're going to hurt more if they're a surprise. And that's where we come in to make the surprises not be a surprise.
And you can't just ignore them.
No, because they're not going to go away.
Right.
It is very rare that I have a client who's coming in to just meet with the financial guy. I would say 90% of my clients who I'm seeing for the first time have needs that they want addressed far beyond just the scope of financial planning. Would you not agree?
I see you all the time, so I have to agree. That 10% I don't ever see. So yeah, we hang out all the time.
Yeah, 70-80% of the time that we spend with folks, both in the initial meeting process and these 15-minute introductory phone calls, the full-blown 60 to 90-minute consultations in person, most of that time is spent talking about things other than the investment management side of what we do, which is a very important piece. But again, it's a piece. We have to be addressing all of those things and being able to bring those questions to the table when appropriate.
Jonathan, do you find in your advisory role when people are coming in, yes, they're talking to you as a financial advisor, but they're prompting the other questions that we can follow up and help them address?
Yes, exactly right. And those are the times where we say, well, what is this going to do to our taxes? What is this going to do for our health insurance? What's this going to do for our children? Let's talk to Gerald. Let's talk to Trey. Let's talk to the tax department, Joshua, and the CPAs. And it's the ability to pull from the expertise of these different professionals that really changes and improves the financial planning that we do. Because ultimately, we have to recognize as financial advisors, no one can control the market, and all financial advisors have access to the same market. Mm-hmm. It's not to say that we're just limited and everybody does it the same, but we have to know what we can control and what we can. These other professionals are game changers for us.
The intricacies of an effective retirement plan are exactly why you need a whole team working together so no issues fall through the cracks. And Market Advisory Group is that team. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call with Market Advisory Group to see if we could be the team for you, please reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube. We upload all of our episodes there for you to watch on demand. Just go to YouTube and search for Eye on Retirement. That's all the time we have this week. I'm Rick Everett along with the entire team, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.